Welcome to the Church of Perpetual Life. My name is Neil Vandry. I'm your officiator here at the church. If this is your first time joining us at Perpetual Life, I'd like to invite you to join our email list so that we can get you updates on all that is going on with Radical Life Extension and so that we can let you know what's going on at the church. You can join our email simply by sending me a message at neil@churchofperpetuallife.org or send me an email through our website at perpetual.life. I understand that there are many people all over the world and all over the country creating watch parties using these presentations for their presentations, and I would recommend that you can also use our YouTube recordings as well. I'd like to invite you to have events like that in your communities. So often I'm contacted by people that say, is there a Church of Perpetual Life in their area? And no, there is not. This is the only one in the world. So join us. Luckily, we do live stream our presentations, and we have these recorded. So join us here. I miss you. I hope that we can get back to meeting in person. When COVID-19 passes, then I look forward to doing that. Please join me while I recite our creed. We believe that all of life is sacred and that we have been given this one life to make unlimited. We believe in our Creator's divine plan for all of humanity to have infinite lifespans in perfect health, eternal joy, rendering death to be optional. By following our gospel, we achieve eternal life, creating a heaven here on earth. We also follow Nikolai Fedorov, who taught that the transcendence of the Creator will only be solved when humanity and our unified efforts become an instrument of universal resuscitation, when the divine word becomes our divine action. We follow Arthur C. Clarke, who said, the only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible. And so we enter each day energized in spirit and empowered by the words of our prophets to live in joy, serving our Creator and all of humanity forever and ever. As you know, RADFest was this past October, and they had many amazing presentations at RADFest, which you can sign up for and see if you just go to radfest.com, RAADfest.com. Please be sure to share this event and this presentation, this live stream, with all of your friends and family, all of those that you love. Here at Perpetual Life, we follow the prophet Arthur C. Clarke, who said, when a distinguished but elderly scientist states that something is possible, he is almost certainly right. And when he states that something is impossible, he is very probably wrong. We also follow the prophet Nikolai Fedorov's philosophy of the common task for humanity. Fedorov believed, as we do here, that we should divert human energies away from wars and dissensions and toward measures for protecting mankind against natural disasters like floods and hurricanes and droughts, and especially aging, and to transform nature from a temporary enemy into an eternal friend. The Church of Perpetual Life is a transhumanist church. We are a science and faith-based church, and our faith is in the Creator and in the humanity to find ways toward a healthy, unlimited lifespan. Because of the COVID outbreak, we're not having any in-person meetings, so we invite you to join all of our meetings live stream until we get back to in-person meetings. I hope you enjoy this evening's presentation.
All right, now we are live. I'm so glad that you could join us tonight. My name is Neil Vandry, and I am the officiator here at Perpetual Life. If this is your first time with us, I would especially like to welcome you. I hope you find tonight's service to be interesting and enjoyable. Our mission here is to help everyone to have a chance for an unlimited lifespan with perfect health. We have regular services once a month where we have guest speakers that teach scientific rationality along with the Creator's plan that humanity evolved to achieve unlimited health spans. We record our services, and you can find past recordings in our YouTube channel. There's a link to the channel on our website in the upper left corner. Next month, our service will be on May 27th, and we are excited to have a presentation by Lisa Feiner and Nancy Weiser on, they're from Sharp Again Naturally. Those of you who have been coming to Perpetual Life for many years may recall that we had a presentation about 6 years ago from Sharp Again Naturally. Many of the things that were taught and predicted that evening have happened, and that has helped some very fine people with Alzheimer's or dementia to be able to get treatments that were not known about in most health circles. Now, on Thursday, May 27th, we will have another presentation, which is entitled Brain 2021, What We Now Know and What You Need to Know. Research on brain health has been a hot topic across the medical community in recent years. Studies are confirming what Sharp Again Naturally has been promoting for years, that many causes of cognitive impairment are in fact preventable and treatable, and that memory loss may be reversible, especially in its early stages. So join us May 27th as we bring the latest findings to you so that you can take an active role in preserving your brain health today and in the years to come. That will be May 27th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Over the past few weeks, there have been some great articles on health and extreme longevity in different magazines, research papers, and other media. If you are a member of the church, you may have noticed these in the newsletters that go out each month. Let me know if you do not get the newsletters, and I will be happy to arrange for you to receive it. So either through an email service like iContact, or I can send it to you with a direct email without any connection to our formal email service. To get the newsletter, just email me at Neil, N-E-A-L, at churchofperpetuallife.org, or send me a message through our website, www.perpetual.life. In a magazine interview in 2009, Ray Kurzweil was quoted as saying that in 30 or 40 years, we will have microscopic machines traveling through our bodies, repairing damaged cells and organs, effectively wiping out diseases. In this interview with Computer World in 2009, Ray Kurzweil said that anyone alive come 2040 or 2050 could be close to immortal. The quickening advance of nanotechnology means that the human condition will shift into a more of a collaboration of man and machine as nanobots flow through human bloodstreams and eventually even replace biological blood. It'll also be a time when humans will augment their natural cognitive powers and add years to their lives. Kurzweil said it's radical life extension. The full realization of nanobots will basically eliminate biological disease and aging. I think we'll see widespread use in 20 years of nanotech devices that perform certain functions for us. In 30 or 40 years, we will overcome disease and aging. Kurzweil said the nanobots will scout out organs and cells that need repairs and simply fix them. It will lead to profound extensions of our health and longevity. Clearly, through nanotechnology, we will see some amazing things and advances in age reversal. But now, just this past Monday, April 19th, there was a report on an amazing breakthrough on what Kurzweil was talking about, a breakthrough in nanotechnology as reported by phys.org, that's phys.org, an article on nanotechnology. And it said, DNA robots are being designed in minutes instead of days. And I'm quoting the article, someday, tiny DNA-based robots and other nanodevices will deliver medicine inside our bodies, detect the presence of deadly pathogens, and help manufacture increasingly small electronics. Researchers took a big step toward that future by developing a new tool that can design much more complex DNA robots and nanodevices than were ever possible before in a fraction of the time. In a paper on April 19th, in the journal Nature Materials, researchers from Ohio State University unveiled new software they call Magic DNA. The software helps researchers design ways to take tiny strands of DNA and combine them into complex structures with parts like rotors and hinges that can move and complete a variety of tasks, including drug delivery. Researchers have been doing this for a number of years with slower tools, with tedious manual steps, but now nano devices that may have taken us several days to design before they now just take a few minutes. Amazing article. You would have seen that article in the newsletter if you get it. So we're seeing what was science fiction become a part of our reality today. I'd like to share with you another article that came out just today by Harvard Health Review. It's actually going to be printed May 2021. And the article says, question, is it possible that scientists will one day be able to slow down the aging of our bodies? Answer, you may be dubious, but yes, it is possible. Quote, I know it seems that every living thing ages, the flowers in the garden, our pets and us, yet a Harvard Medical School colleague who studies aging, genetics Professor David Sinclair, tells me there are certain cold water fish that may never die natural deaths. They die from injury or being consumed by larger animals, but it's not clear that they die naturally. Some are hundreds of years old and still frisky. We've heard these kind of things in mainstream media for years, that slowing the aging process or age reversal was not possible. That was typically said in many publications, but in the past 2 years, that has been changing at amazing speed. When we hear statements like this, that it is possible to slow down the aging of our bodies in a publication like Harvard Review, that really is great news. It is tremendous to see mainstream media recognizing what we have been working toward for so many years, that slowing and age reversal is possible. So join us to make it happen. Our events are always open and free to attend, and I'd like to invite you to make a donation to Perpetual Life if you can. You'll find a donation button on our website at the top of the page. Through your generous donations, we are able to continue to have excellent services and events and support one another in our quest to live a healthy, unlimited lifespan. I'd like to let you know that our church has been gifted quite a few KN95 head strap face masks. So we have some face masks, and if you would like some, let me know and I'll be sure to meet with you at the church or get them to you in some fashion. If you need KN95 head strap masks, we have them. Also, if you enjoy our services here, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and tell your family and friends and all those that you love and those that you'd like to see to be healthy and live super long lives to come to our events. Next month, it'll be so easy for you to virtually bring a guest. So virtually bring a guest to our event on May 27th. Just call your friends, invite them, text them, message them, maybe share it on your Facebook page. Tell everyone that you care about. They will love you for it. Throughout this event, you can ask questions, any questions that you need to ask, any questions that you'd like to ask at any time in the chat box in the bottom right corner. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you our guest speaker this evening from the Asher Longevity Institute. John is an experienced international speaker on living a longer, healthy life and key founder of Asher Longevity. In his late 70s, John is still vibrant and active, traveling to over 50 cities a year, delivering sales training and life longevity information in the USA, Canada, and China. John's mantra is always making the complex simple. He first applied that to sales training, growing a highly successful sales training company. Now he has applied it to the principles of living a long and active life. He has taken the mountains of information on supplements, new innovative treatments, and lifestyle habits, all boiled down into a simple system that is constantly updated and refined. So welcome John Asher with his presentation, The 9 Simple Steps to a Much Longer and Healthier Life. Hello, John.
Hello, great to be with you all. Let me pull up my screen. So great to be with you all tonight. I'm going to do this presentation in two parts. Part one tonight, and then part two some other time. And a little bit of background. At Navy, I was the fifth string quarterback behind Roger Staubach. I never got in a game. I never suited up for a game, but I practiced a lot against the sixth string. We had eight strings. We beat Army all 4 years. We had a great coach, Wayne Harden, and he really emphasized three things: eat balanced meals, eat dessert once a week only, and do strength training throughout the rest of your life. So that's all stuck with me. Then when I got in the Navy, even though I was in the submarine force, you can still work out on a submarine. And I started reading various studies about health and nutrition. The first one I read was our soil is so depleted from minerals that you really ought to take a multivitamin just as an insurance policy. Then I read about teachers in Alaska who, after 20 years of teaching, are able to retire for the rest of their life at full pay. And the reason was because of the SAD syndrome, not enough sunlight. And so the advice was, if you're not getting at least 15 minutes a day of sunlight, you better take vitamin D. And then I ran across the Life Extension Institute way back when, must be 30 years ago, maybe 35. And I started taking the supplements. I started reading the monthly magazine, and I still read it every day, every month when it comes out, from cover to cover, and implement essentially what it says to do. So I'm actually in my 81st year now. The resume is a little bit old, but that's okay. And so what I'm going to show you is really a handbook for longevity. And I just gave a longevity presentation to a big group. And here's how I started. Nobody is going to have to write my eulogy. And everybody stood up and cheered and hooted and hollered and high-fived each other because they all think like I do. And the reason nobody's going to have to write my eulogy is I don't plan on dying. I don't plan on getting any major disease, and I intend to live forever. So now let's see what the opportunity is for all of us. So the protocols, therapies, and technologies now pretty much will let us live to 100 as opposed to the average age of 80 now, if we do the right things. And these are just some quotes from very prestigious organizations. JAMA, the world's #1 medical journal, the Geriatric Society, of course, Mayo Clinic, Scripps Clinic, and our own Life Extension Institute. So these aren't just fly-by-night organizations. These are prestigious organizations essentially telling us if we do the right thing, we can live for another 20 years. And in almost every study, you'll be hearing about rapamycin and metformin. And the amount of money that's going into longevity technologies is just unbelievable. It's like an explosion of funding. And a lot of it's driven by the young people out there in Silicon Valley who make a lot of money in companies and actually want to put that money somewhere where will help them personally to live longer. So here's how we got going on this. At the first RadFest, I really liked what I heard at the second one. At the third, Bill Flume started to talk about a step-by-step way to get better, a step-by-step process. And as I was flying home from that back to the East Coast, I'm not overly religious. I'm spiritual, but not overly religious. I got a calling from the man upstairs. It was so strong. It just hit me right in the chest. And basically the calling was, you've got to put all this together. You have the capability to save 1 billion lives. So get with the program. So I got together with these 5 people, 5 other doctors, 3 other engineers, and we said, let's re-engineer longevity. In other words, let's start with an unlimited life and work backwards to see what it takes to get there. That's where we've come up with these 9 steps. So let me give you a little bit of background. So there's an awful lot of practitioners of this now. The NFL GOAT, Tom Brady, of course. Bill Flume's on the list. Suzanne Summers, as many of you know, is on the list. I didn't used to put myself on the list, but everybody in the company said, you got to put yourself on the list. And here's the tremendous potential benefit. So about 3 years ago, I gave a presentation to a group of CEOs in LA, and they had a leader, a chair. And he said, told me later, he said, John, one of the CEOs said, you know, this is all BS. I'm not going to take all these steps to gain another year or two. That's crazy. I'm going to give up steak and whiskey and quit smoking for 1 or 2 more years. It's just not worth it. So he said, John, you've got to come up with a slide that'll hit people over the head like a 2x4 and wake them up to the possibility. All right, so here's that slide. So lifespan's about 80 years. Most of us know that. Longer for women than men, but the average is about 80 years. And health span is about 63 years. So about 63 years on average, people start getting cancer, atherosclerosis, diabetes, dementia, arthritis, and on and on and on. So if you essentially take the 9 steps that we recommend and do it purposefully, and I don't mean you have to be 100% every day. I'm 90%. It's not like I never have a chocolate chip cookie. I do, but not much. My wife's about 70%. So if you do this, if you really take these 9 steps and go after it as a new way of living, then the probability of major disease is reduced. At 81, I've never had any major disease or even close. I have no aches and pains. And you can potentially live, as you saw in the beginning, to 100 with robust health. Now, let's see how much more this is going to give us. Well, if we can live to 100 with robust health, that's 20 more years of life. And if we can do it with robust health, it's 37 more years of health span. So this is really the tremendous potential benefit, 20 more years. And of course, no one wants to live 20 more years with lousy health, 37 more years of a great health span. That's the real potential benefit for all of us. And you've heard Bill Falloon say this many occasions. Here's a logical goal for us, no matter what our age. Live as long as you can. Take action to do so. Because who knows what great new therapies will be available, and they're coming soon. There's a new study every day related to longevity. So be ready when it comes so you can adopt it. It won't be too late. And so really the path for us, for all of us, would be rapidly deploy these new technologies, therapies, and protocols when they come out, be an early adopter. And it really doesn't matter what age you start. And recognize and document these benefits for the early adopters, and then help executives and companies recognize the tremendous benefit for their employees. So less sick days, less days where you don't take a sick day, but you still don't feel right, more productive years from all employees, and of course, much less in health insurance costs. So this is a potentially the path and a way to get the CEOs and executive teams to recognize it. And then the goal really would be this. Once you get the early adopters, like many of us want to be, and demonstrate to the government how we can reduce the $4 trillion with countries spending on health costs, really reduce it with much less money spent on health longevity technologies, and then start rolling out all these great new technologies and therapies that many of us have heard about already. For example, CRISPR now, 3 weeks ago, was demonstrated to be able to cut out the gene for progeria, that disease where people only live into their teens, they age incredibly quickly. Now we've essentially got a cure for that. They can live into their 40s now, and maybe even longer. So this is what I mean about what's coming. It's just coming so fast. Now, I have personally read 60 books on longevity. Our team has read probably an average of 25 or 30. I've got them here in alphabetical order, the ones we think are the best. And I'm just going to slowly scroll through it. Some of these names of these books are great, like Grain Brain, Fast Food Genocide. The Hacking of the American Mind. The Switch just came out. Great book on fasting. Wheat Belly. So I don't want to show you too many, but I just want to give you the idea. We're not just making this stuff up. We have read all these books. We've taken everything they're telling us and integrated it together. So let's start with the problem. Here's the problem. Essentially, most of us are going to die from one of these 5 diseases. That's essentially what's going to happen. And we all know it's 500,000 plus for COVID already. And many, many people in the US will have a much shorter health span because of all these unhealthy choices. And we've all heard about chronic inflammation. That's one of the big causes, as we all know. And here's how much money the country's spending on health costs. It's like OMG. And most of it, you can see, is spent on the elderly who suffer from all of these diseases. Multiple references show us that 43% of the people in the US, the adults, are obese. Another 32% are overweight. And I just read, by the way, it was just the Washington Post yesterday, that the average American adult has gained 29 pounds in the last year. It's like, whoa. So all of these lead to chronic inflammation. So our answer to this, of course, is these 9 steps to an unlimited life, which I'm going to show you here in a bit. And what we're doing is we're really just taking all this stuff and boiling it down. And we want it to be so compelling that people will just perk up and act right away. And so we're continuously boiling it down to make it compelling. And we just have a modest why we're doing this, and that is to save 1 billion lives. And that may be low end. So now let's see why we die. So the NIH, among many, many other organizations, has done studies on this. And essentially, this is the main reason. And there's 4 reasons we die. So the first, many of us have heard about the senescent cells. And that is our body continuously goes through the process of getting rid of weak and damaged cells and replacing them with new cells and stem cells rushing in and that sort of thing. We've all heard about this. The trouble is 1 in 1,500 of those senescent cells stays around. And it's called a zombie cell because it's not quite dead. It should be, but it isn't. It keeps emitting all these compounds that are awful for us and affecting other nearby cells. And then if you can get all these dead things agglomerating, of course, in our brain together, then it typically leads to these various neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, dementia. That's the first reason we die. Second, there's a big protein in our body called mTOR. Many of you have heard of it. It's responsible for helping us grow from baby to adulthood in about 16 to 18 years. So that's good. The trouble is it doesn't turn off. So if you get cancer, that is what causes cancer to grow so fast, that mTOR. And why people who get glioblastoma may have months, and people who get pancreatic cancer, it's over pretty quickly as well. Next is NAD+, that many of us have heard of. And the trouble is, at about age 80, there's only 2% left. And there's a real strong correlation between the average person dies at 80 and no NAD+ left. And then the fourth principal reason we die is because the thymus gland right there in the middle of our chest is pretty central to our immune system, pretty much shriveled up and gone by age 70, and explains why so many elderly people over 70 get the flu, get tuberculosis, get pneumonia, and die. And of course, you can add COVID into that as well. You can see from the second bullet that when people over 65 get COVID, they're 1,100 times more likely to die than a young person. So those are the basic 4 reasons we die. And you can see how many times the word chronic inflammation comes up. And let's just talk briefly about inflammation. Acute inflammation is good. So if we're sick or get an injury to a leg or an arm, then the acute inflammation goes to work. The immune cells rush in to fix it. If it's really bad, then the bigger immune cells rush in and blow up everything in sight, even healthy cells. And the trouble is those bigger immune cells don't turn off. And they create this chronic inflammation. And the effect it will have on the second bullet there, you can see, is not good. And then it'll result in these diseases shown here on the bottom. So this is the problem with chronic inflammation, meaning just low-level inflammation on a continuing basis, as opposed to acute, which is big-time inflammation over a short period. Here's what causes this chronic inflammation. So we all have great genes, but some people have a few bad genes. Hepatitis C, Lyme disease, infections that last a long time. There's pollution. There's also a handful of these poor lifestyle choices. And I'll just slowly scroll through these, all familiar to all of us. So all of this stuff on that bottom bullet, these are all lifestyle choices essentially for all of us. We can have an effect on these, and all of them cause chronic inflammation. So now let's look at the 9 steps and what we can do about all this. So I'm going to let you look at them for just a minute. The first 4 or 5, nothing new here. But then 6, 7, 8 become much more exciting, more provocative. And then 9, we think, is, of course, the most important step. And that is, as you see things happen, new stuff coming out, new therapies, protocols, and technologies, be an early adopter as appropriate. Don't wait for another 20 years until it's proven by some FDA-approved trial that's probably never going to happen. So these are the 9 steps to an unlimited life, and many of these you will recognize if you've been a RadFest participant over the last 5 years like I have. You'll recognize a lot of this. And if you're a consumer of the Life Extension monthly magazine, you'll see this as well. So now I'm going to start from the end. Let's assume that you're going to adopt these 9 steps. Let's see what it would take to go from wherever you are to these 9 steps. I'm going to start like a newspaper article. Here's the headline. So I've got actions month by month. It's a 12-month process that you can take. And when you try to put them in order, it's difficult because some are easy to implement, some are difficult, some are costly, some are inexpensive, and some are more important than others. So when you try to make a list in importance, you've got to consider all 3 of those elements. So nobody thinks this is the perfect list in the perfect order. So here's month 1 and month 2. Month 1 would be all about getting 8 hours of sleep and plenty of deep sleep. It would be all about taking a look at your blood tests, including your hormones, and seeing where you're in the range or out of the range. I think most of us know by now that the range when you get blood tests from LabCorp or Quest, that range is just the average range for Americans. It's not the optimum range. But again, Life Extension knows what the optimum range is. So every time I get a blood test, I get one every quarter, then one of the health advisors at Life Extension, her name is Sevda Akundova, then she goes over the results with me and she knows exactly where those measurements should be. Sometimes they're actually above the normal range or below, or high end or low end. So that's like fundamental to get started. Then month 2, start eating less sugar and processed foods and using the natural oils instead of the manufactured oils, and making sure you're staying hydrated. Then I'll let you take a look at month 3 and 4. So it's all about getting around a little bit, getting fresh air, doing strength training. I'll show you a bit that if you don't do strength training throughout your life, by age 80, you've lost 50% of your muscle mass and become frail and subject to falls. Then month 4, most of us have heard about lectin and why it's so bad for us, and the dairy products from the normal cows in the U.S. Fiber is extremely important. In month 5, 6, and 7. And by the way, I've got the steps of the 9 steps annotated for each one of these action items. So cut back on meat and poultry and get the stuff that's been grass fed, no hormones, no antibiotics, and on and on. Get into eating some of the right nuts and seeds. And if you really want to get going, start eating organic. Don't eat stuff that's had all this glyphosate, which is an antibiotic, sprayed on them, or the farm animals who've been eating that stuff, because we're getting it through them. And don't even think about eating farm-raised fish or shellfish. I'll show you why. Then month 7, maybe take the 15 basic supplements. You can get them all from Life Extension. And then much more exciting, in middle age, start taking some longevity supplements from Life Extension, and they're all based on these artificial intelligence studies, which is great. Start taking some of these prescription drugs. They have a great benefit for warding off cancer. So for example, I don't have high cholesterol, but I'm taking a statin. I don't have high blood pressure, but I'm taking a beta blocker. I don't have type 2 diabetes, but I'm taking metformin. And then 12, start taking rapamycin and Depronel. Think about full body stem cell regeneration. And then, of course, check in with us or some other company monthly and see what's new and see what's worth implementing. So that's the big picture plan on what to do if you want to live forever or as close to forever as possible. So now let's peel back the onion on this a bit. So I've highlighted again metformin and rapamycin. Remember from the first slide or two, they were highlighted. Here's where they fit in. So again, here's my 2x4 slide. So if you get after that 12-month process and you're, say, 90%, which is what I am, again, it doesn't mean I never eat ice cream. I do every now and then, but not much. Then you really can gain 20 years of lifespan with robust health. And since most people start having health issues at age 63, 37 years of increased health span. All right, so let's go to step 1. So you're watching TV with your partner, and an advertisement comes on, and it's somebody in a doctor's outfit, and it's my face, it's me. And I am telling you that I've got a new pill, and it's just plant-based, and so won't be any side effects. And if you take this pill, you will enjoy all 13 of these benefits. And I further claim that there are 17,000 studies that document these benefits that you're going to get from this pill. Well, would you take it? You'd be dying to take it. Sorry for the pun. You'd love to take that pill to get all these benefits. Actually, it's not a pill. The answer to get all 13 of these benefits is just start getting a full night's sleep. That's it. 17,000 documented studies on why a full night's sleep is so important. If you wonder what that means, when you just go back to evolution, until about 100 or so years ago, we went to bed when it got dark and we woke up when it was light. And it turns out, on average, that was about 8+ hours of sleep. And now we're all getting, on average in the US, 6.5 hours of sleep instead of 8.5 hours. That has catastrophic impacts on our health, our life expectancy. Our children are getting up at 5:45 so they can catch the school bus at 6:30. And of course, our safety and our productivity. So I want to give you just one study that will illustrate this point. And it's a study about the Golden State Warriors, a National Basketball Association team, who won the World Championship twice in a row. So they were studied for a whole year through the basketball season. And when the players got more than 8 hours of sleep a night, they enjoyed many more minutes played and a big increase in the number of points they scored per minute. When the players got less than 8 hours of sleep, opposite occurred. Imagine 37% increase in turnovers, losing the ball, and a 45% increase in fouls committed. So this is just one of 17,000 documented studies that prove why we need 8.5 hours of sleep, as opposed to the 6.5 everybody seems to be getting. Here's another good example of it. So you can see the dotted line goes down to the right. So it's really saying in 1940, we were all getting 8.5 hours of sleep, and now we're getting 6.5. And the line going up to the right is the increase in obesity in our country. And these lines impact each other. So imagine you're awake 2 more hours now than people who go to bed and get 8.5 hours of sleep. And let's just say you only eat 50 calories more that day because you're awake 2 more hours. Doesn't sound like much. However, 50 calories a day to get to 2,000, 40 days. And then times 9. So now we've gained 9 pounds in the year just from this. Now multiply that times a whole bunch of years, you can see how easily this lack of sleep leads to obesity. So we want to be able to measure how we're sleeping. So this is a Fitbit, or use some other wearable, and it'll show you this on the app the next morning. So the solid line in the middle is essentially how much light sleep we're getting. The light blue line on the top is how much REM sleep we're getting. And down there on the bottom is the dark blue sign. That's how much deep sleep we're getting. And so you can see for me, I went to bed about 11, got out of bed at maybe 8:30. The red is when you were awake. So you can see there about 5:30, I got up to pee, essentially. So you can really see what's going on. Now, here's why deep sleep, I'm sure we've all heard this, deep sleep is so important. Here's why. So these cells go through the regeneration period, and in our body, the lymph nodes, the lymph system washes them out through the urine, big pipe. In our brain, constrained by the skull, the only way for those dead cells to get out is to go down through the brain stem, a much smaller pipe. Therefore, the cells in the brain have to contract to let those cells get washed out. And when they do, they get washed out at a 20 times faster rate. And it's only during deep sleep when this 20 times faster rate occurs. That's why deep sleep is so important. Incredibly important for longevity. So if you want to increase your deep sleep, here's some ideas. So my wife and I go from 72 to 67 at night with the thermostat. I use a sleep mask. We use a pink noise generator, so we're not disturbed by the outside noises. We're in downtown DC, so there's lots of outside noises. And the trouble with the screens, cell phones, TVs, computers, is that they emit the whole frequency of lights, including blue light. And blue light depresses melatonin in our brain. So you either want to quit watching a screen about an hour before you go to bed, or get blue light blocking glasses with lenses. Like these are like $80 from Costco, and they block out the blue light. Some new cell phones have that option to do it as well. And you'd never guess this, but wearing loose-fitting socks at night has tremendous benefit. Now let's look at step 2. We've all heard eat a healthy diet. Here's the 4 reasons on why to do so. Really to prevent disease, infection, including COVID, getting fatigue, and poor performance. And as our mothers and grandmothers taught us, eat balanced meals. And you don't want to eat too much fruit that has a lot of sugar, high glycemic index, or too many starches. And it's always good to have a robust amount of fish in your diet. So I'll show you why in a bit. And we don't want to cook much at high temperatures, because when you do, there's a process in our body called glycation. That's when a protein or a fat gets together with a sugar molecule and cause what are called AGEs, advanced glycation end products. And they're formed when you cook at high temperatures. And the animal fats are the most susceptible to this. Now, the body will naturally get rid of these end products, these AGEs, and they can get rid of about 5,000 units of AGEs per day. So if you don't eat too much of this high temperature food cooked at high temperature, you don't generate too much. But if you have more than 5,000 per day, they'll build up. And of course, oops, here we go. Chronic inflammation again. And that one measurement in your blood that diabetics use, the A1C measurement, actually tells you, measures the buildup of these AGEs. So let's see what foods have how many AGEs. So, oops. So if you went to the ballpark and had 2 hot dogs, you've really blown your AGE budget for the day just with those 2 hot dogs. So you can see here, there's a lot of stuff we should not be eating because of the adverse effects of these AGEs on our body. I used to have like 6, what my wife called wise guy slides. This is the only one left. So see the bacon sizzle. I love the bacon. And then imagine in your body when you eat the bacon, all your internal tissues kind of sizzling from that AGE generated inflammation. Oops, die sooner. So sorry, that's my only wise guy slide. I used to love bacon, but I don't eat it anymore because of this. Now, one way to do better with cooking to avoid the high heat is, you can see here, cook with lower temperatures, add vinegar, tomato juice, lemon juice. And of course, as you probably know, all processed and prepackaged foods are cooked at high temperatures, so just don't eat much of that stuff. Now let's look at fats next. There's 2 essential fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6. And the right ratio for us used to be, back in evolution, was 4-to-1, omega-6 to omega-3. We need both, but we need them in that ratio. The trouble with the Western diet is, of course, the ratio is so much higher. So if you want to cut down on omega-6, then you got to eat less of this stuff. And if you want to boost omega-3, then olive oil, oily fish, and even fish oil supplements. And having this 16-to-1, 20-to-1 way up there is related to essentially all aging-related diseases. To see what foods have how much of these fatty acids, you can see how many milligrams. And so this is just blows your omega-6 totally high. And you can say, okay, well, let's eat a lot of fish so we can get it back in balance. Oops, the fish, the salmon, it's that just don't have that much. So we want to eat a lot of these healthy fats. And these are the ones we want to eat a lot of because they all are full of omega-3. My wife and I both eat an avocado per day. We both eat nuts and seeds, and we cook with olive oil. And we want to eat natural oils, and that natural oil means you take the olive or the avocado or whatever, and you squeeze it, and the juice comes out, and that's it. No processing. So these are the good oils, so to speak, just natural oils. And walnuts are a superfood because of these benefits. So my wife and I are eating these every morning. Actually helps decrease the chronic inflammation. Another superfood is olive oil. And many of us have heard the benefits of the Mediterranean diet. Well, when you peel back the onion on it, it almost always goes back to so much olive oil in that diet. Now to look at the bad fats. So all of these oils are called vegetable oils, and the manufacturers call them vegetable oils, so it'll sound like they're really good for us. Actually, they're horrible for us. I'll show you why in a minute. One of the reasons, of course, they're all high in these omega-6 fatty acids. And of course, all this other stuff full of omega-6. So let's see how the manufacturers make these manufactured oils. Here's the manufacturing process. I like step 5. Deodorize the oil to mask the smell from the chemical processing. Yay. I was giving a presentation in LA recently, and it was a food manufacturer, Latino Foods, and it was in a bad neighborhood, so I was advised to park in the back where they had security, so I did. Now I'm walking in the back door, and I see these 2 vats of canola oil. I say, wait a minute. I thought this was a food manufacturer, not a canola oil factory. Well, it wasn't. This is just how much canola oil they're using in that food factory, which is just an amazing amount. So many of us have been hearing about the microbiome. And the reason we should have a great microbiome in our gut is to avoid these 10 diseases and 3 conditions shown here. And I've got in parentheses what percent of Americans actually have these diseases and conditions. You can see that third one down the list, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. A third of the adults in the US have that. So in other words, their liver is going bad just because of these bad diets. So now let's peel back the onion on what the microbiome is all about. So our gut, our digestive system, is from when the food goes in to when it goes out. All of those systems are essentially our digestive system, usually called our gut. So our gut's not just our stomach, it's all those systems and organs. Our microbiome, micro meaning small, biome meaning home. So our microbiome is what's in the gut. And what's in there is 5 pounds of bacteria, which is a lot of bacteria, trillions of bacteria, and all of these other microbes. Probiotics are the good bacteria in our gut. And prebiotics are the food that the probiotics like to eat. So we want to have a lot of probiotics in our gut, the good bacteria as opposed to the bad. And of course, we want to have a lot of prebiotics because that's what the probiotics eat. And when you have a great, healthy microbiome, because it's mainly good bacteria, greatly increases our health span and lifespan. Now, the biggest nerve in our body goes from our brain, heart, lungs, and gut. And of interest, there are 8 times as many messages that go from the gut to the brain as the brain to the gut. And therefore, you might say, well, which is the real brain? Well, actually, the gut microbiome influences everything: sense of smell, cravings, thoughts, essentially everything. And to give you a quick example, about 4 years ago, reading The Plant Paradox, Dr. Gundry, I decided to go on a 5-day cleanse. And the purpose of the cleanse was to get rid of the bad bacteria and replace it with good bacteria. So I did it. And he claimed in his book that if you do so, then your sense of smell will change, so you'll what you should be eating, it smells good. And what you shouldn't be eating doesn't smell good. And your cravings will change. I was a little skeptical, but I did it. I was pretty faithful about doing it. So then we were down at our beach place in the Outer Banks. So we drove back to DC, and we're at one of my grandson's birthday parties. It's one of those rooms where they all bounce around in these big things to have fun, burn energy, and then they sit down and have a meal and a birthday cake. So we're all the parents and grandparents are there watching the kids. And I heard the back door open, and then there was this horrible smell. And so I turned around and I whispered to my wife, I said, honey, what's that horrible smell? She looked around, she said, what do you mean? They just brought the pizza in. So my gut microbiome had trained my sense of smell to think that pizza does not smell good at all. I've always loved pizza, but I'm not eating it much anymore. So it actually really happened that way for me. Now, our entire gut has a barrier, mucosal barrier, that prevents everything in our gut, all that bacteria, good and bad, from getting out in the bloodstream and affecting organs. And of course, it protects bad stuff from coming into the gut. And, and the trouble with it, that barrier is it's only one molecule thick. So it's very thin and easy to break through. And when we have too much of the chronic inflammation, especially from lectin, from grains, then that will result in what's called the leaky gut syndrome. I'm sure many of you have heard. And that leaky gut syndrome actually isn't a disease. It's just a description of the bad stuff getting into the gut, or the bacteria, good and bad, getting out from the gut, causing the 10 diseases and 3 conditions. So now let's see what the probiotics, the good bacteria, like to eat. Here's what they like. Mainly a vegan diet. Here's what the bad bacteria in our gut like. Unfortunately, a Western diet. And the bad bacteria love lectins. They love the dairy products, love sugar and artificial sugar. Red meat tastes great to them too. Also sugar and manufactured vegetable oils. So the bad bacteria loves all this stuff. And when we switch from an overall way of eating so that we have mainly good bacteria, overall health improves within days, just like it did for me 4 years ago. So let's peel back the onion on each one of these. Here's the trouble with lectin. So for millions of years, plants have developed lectin. So it tastes bad to insects and to animals, so you don't eat the leaves in the plant. And that's been around for millions of years. And it's only been that we humans have cultivated grain like wheat for about 10,000 years. So our guts really are not attuned to lectin. And lectin from grains, particularly wheat, will easily cause the leaky gut syndrome. So that's the problem with lectin. It's the first cousin of gluten. So again, when that leaky gut occurs, it allows the bacteria to invade the rest of our body. So we really shouldn't be eating too much of these grains, or the animals and poultry and farm-raised fish that have been fed these grains. And unfortunately, beans, legumes, are great for us because they're full of fiber, full of protein. And the trouble is they are a lectin bomb. And some of you may remember your mother or grandmother soaking beans the night before they cooked them the next day. They never heard of lectin, but they knew from experience that if you didn't soak the beans, then people would suffer digestive upset the next day when they ate them. So they knew you had to soak them. So soaking gets rid of about half the lectin, but if you really want to get rid of all the lectin, you got to pressure cook them, or buy this brand. You can get it at Whole Foods, the Eden brand, already pressure cooked. And of course, you can buy chips now that don't have no grains, none of the vegetable oils. Here's a good brand, the Siete brand. So you can see it's avocado oil and natural oil, cassava root, and that's essentially it. They're great. They taste great. Or you can buy these chips if you got to have chips. These tortilla chips, coconut flour, again, cassava starch and coconut oil. Again, great for us. Now next, here's the trouble with dairy. So there was a spontaneous mutation a couple thousand years ago with the cows that are brand that's the most prevalent in the U.S. And that casein A2 protein changed spontaneously to casein A1, and that's what causes this attack on our immune system. It's not actually lactose intolerant. Actually, 2/3 of the people are intolerant of casein A1 to a degree. Again, oops, more chronic inflammation. So there's lots of alternatives. So my wife and I drink goat milk or macadamia milk, which is essentially macadamia nut milk. You can get, there's a brand you see right there in the middle. It's a brand of cow in the U.S. that did not have that mutation. So you can drink that milk. Or you can have a goat yogurt or goat products. I just made a fruit smoothie for the week tonight and used that plain unsweetened goat yogurt. Next is sugar. Sugar is not required for any animal or human. And so the reason we got into eating so much sugar is this. About 30 years ago, Dr. Alan Keynes got on this big thing about, actually manipulated data to show it, about how fat is bad for us, saturated fat, and how LDL is bad for us. That's all been totally debunked now. But because of that and the fact that it lasted so long, so the manufacturers had to remove fat or either make it low fat or non-fat so they could sell it. The trouble was, when you did that, it tasted horrible. So they had to add sugar to make the taste better. And so that's why there's so much sugar in everything now, essentially. And our bodies just don't require it. So all of this stuff has an unbelievable amount of sugar. Example, I used to eat French fries every now and then, and to me, a French fry and a ketchup was just perfect. I don't eat French fries anymore. I'm not eating ketchup either because it's 25% sugar. So the bad microbiome not only like simple sugar, but they like artificial sweeteners. And the artificial sweeteners actually kill the good gut bacteria. So the way out of this, if you have to have a sweetener, would be either one of these, monk fruit or stevia, both approved by the FDA as sweeteners, and neither one has any sugar or any calories, actually. And you can buy them in the grocery store. Actually, some grocery stores package them together, and it looks just like sugar. It's granulars, just like sugar. Here's cookies my wife now makes. You can see really only 2 ingredients, cassava flour and monk fruit sweetener, actually pretty good. Even the grandkids eat them. And that's all they got in them. So now let's look at meat, why it's so dangerous. So these are numerous worldwide studies that show that the meat eaters essentially suffer from all these diseases early. And you can see from the second bullet that the meat eaters lose 10 years essentially. So vegetarian men outlive meat eater men by 10 years. And a lot of this comes from the blue zone studies. And of course, meat has no fiber in it and high in saturated fat, usually full of hormones and full of antibiotics. Other than that, great. So my wife and I were at Whole Foods about a year ago when the Beyond Burger and fake meat came out. We said, well, let's try it. So we bought a package of hamburger and a package of sausages. We took them home and cooked them up. We ate them over a couple of days, and they actually really did taste pretty good, I have to say. It really did taste like meat. And then, after my wife cooked up the sausage, she looked at the ingredients. We just failed to look at them when we bought the stuff. We always look at ingredients, but we didn't for this. So here's the ingredients in Beyond Meat. How'd you like to have a spoonful of titanium dioxide, which is a whitening agent used in paint? And the protein in this fake meat is beans and legumes, which are full of lectin, so they're a lectin bomb. And they're also full of these vegetable oils, so full of omega-6. So it's possible they could be worse for you. I'm not too sure how. Now here's the danger of pesticides, and Roundup is actually both approved as a herbicide and a pesticide for insects and leafy weeds. When you test humans for it, essentially everybody has it in their system, because we're eating farm animals who are eating plants who've been sprayed with Roundup, and or they're just eating the vegetables that have been sprayed with it. And the trouble with an antibiotic like glyphosate is antibiotic kills the biotics in our microbiome. So they're essentially killing the good stuff in our microbiome. So the bottom line here is just stick to organic foods because it can't have pesticides associated with it. And there's a whole bunch of information about organic foods. I won't bore you with it here, other than to say just eat organic, and then you preclude all of this stuff. Now here's the trouble with antibiotics and hormones fed to farm animals. Obviously, they feed them so that they don't die and they don't lose them and lose money. And the amount of them administered to farm animals is shocking. And not only that, they're broad spectrum. So for example, if your child has an ear infection, you go to the doctor would say, okay, here's this antibiotic, it'll cure that bacteria. Maybe a couple of days later, another one of your kids has a sinus infection, and you go to the doctor prescribes a different antibiotic targeted at that bacteria. All these farm animals are fed a broad spectrum antibiotic, meaning all antibiotics. And when we're eating them, we're eating that too. Now let's look at what we could be eating. Typically, you don't want to eat more than 4 ounces of protein a day, meat, fish, etc. And if you're going to eat fish and shellfish, make sure it's wild caught. I'll show you why in a minute. We can just see here, farm-raised salmon. They're fed grain. They're fed canola oil. They're given antibiotics. They're given hormones. And they're also eating chicken feces pellets. Sound good? Not too good. So you can get what you need to eat with all of this at Costco, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's typically. And so my wife and I will eat meat maybe once every 2 weeks, chicken maybe once a week, and then the other nights, maybe beans one night, but the rest would be poultry or not poultry, but fish or shellfish. And again, these 3 grocers, easy to get. Now, so when you grow farm-raised salmon, it's usually in a pond or a tank, or maybe in a body of water with nets around. And when it comes out, since it's fed all that stuff, it looks like this. This is how salmon comes out of the pen. And then they add pink dye to make it look like wild-caught salmon. How's that look? Pretty appetizing? So I was at Costco one day, and so I took a picture of farm-raised salmon. Here it is. And then I took a picture of wild caught salmon. See any difference? Well, when you look at that, when you're going to buy farm raised salmon and you're looking at that light pink color, just imagine it's really gray. And once you realize this, an example would be farm raised shrimp, it tastes mushy. Wild caught shrimp is actually crunchy. So when you compare them side by side, it's a huge difference. And again, you can get all these other foods like poultry and eggs. You can see here they can even have omega-3 added to eggs, and you can get beef with grass finished, no hormones, no antibiotics, and on and on. I was actually doing one of these presentations in Vegas a year ago, just before the shutdown. And it was a big complex. They had, I don't know, a dozen restaurants, and one was a really nice one with a white tablecloth. And so John Edwards and I just treated ourselves when we went there. And they actually had steak and grass-finished steak. They had salmon, farm-raised, and wild-caught salmon. So some of the better restaurants are wising up to this and giving us consumers what we really want. So let's sum up what we shouldn't be eating, and in parentheses after it, why not? This comes from one of those great books, Grain Brain. Now, to see what you can eat, should eat, I've got 2 slides here. And I've got two slides. Here's the 2 slides I meant. I've got 2 slides on how to upgrade your diet, just your diet, for step 3, the healthy gut microbiome. And all of these were in that big planning guide I showed you in the beginning. Now, I mentioned that we want to keep our biomarkers in the optimal range, not just that big range shown to you by LabCorp, but in the right range. And these are the right ranges when you get your blood test from, say, Life Extension, and one of their health advisors goes over it with you. By the way, they're authorized to go up to an hour to debrief it with you. And it should include the male and female hormones. We can also monitor our blood pressure every day. I monitor mine 3 times a day. And there was a trial called the SPRINT trial, and it was a 5-year trial, seeing what the effects was when people have a blood pressure lower than 120 or over 140. They stopped the trial at the 2.5-year point. And the reason was so many people with a blood pressure over 140 were dying during the study. They stopped the study, mid-study, just to show you how important blood pressure is. And instead of seeing your weight every now and then, you can get one of these body mass scales to see where your body fat is and your BMI and how much visceral fat you've got. That's the fat around your organs. Looks like this. Not very expensive. It's like $30 on Amazon. These are actually my measurements. So I'm almost 6'2", weigh 155. You can see my body mass, and you can see all of them. And it uses induction to infer these measurements, and then it has an app that goes with it. So once you stand on it, it steadies out, then your app will be updated, and the app will look like this. So if you look on the left, you can see all of those various measurements: weight, BMI, body fat, body mass index, etc. And then if you want to see where you are on the range or not, you can click on that particular one, and then you go over to the right. And so if you had clicked on BMI, that's what it would look like. So when you take me, my wife and my kids all say, "Dad, you're too damn skinny." you got to gain more weight. But when you look, I'm right in the middle of the normal range. It's just everybody else is so much bigger than me, heavier than me. And some of the recommended periodic testing are shown here. So a Fitbit, of course, will show you your heart rate. You can measure your blood pressure. You can get on that scale every morning if you like. Quarterly, a blood analysis. Semi-annually, an ultrasound of your abdomen, all the organs. And the reason is, this is from NIH, if you get cancer of any organ and the first time you know it is your blood in your urine or you're coughing out blood, it's too late. You're at stage 3 or 4. But if you get an ultrasound at the periodicity of every 6 months, you'll catch it in time to cure it and fix it. And of course, if there's something on the ultrasound, then you can have something higher resolution, MRI, just to see what's going on. Then a physical every year. You can also, from Life Extension, get a analysis of your microbiome to see how much bad and good bacteria you've got. And then Life Extension will help you with the right supplements to get rid of the bad bacteria. And then about age 50, get that with contrast CT of your heart and the arteries, a whole body MRI, the bone density testing for men and women. And then every 5 years, starting at age 50, the colonoscopy, the MRI of the brain, and the neurolegion quant assessment is tests so you can see your brain power and brain speed, so you can see how you're doing compared to where you should be at your age. And then, of course, the genome analysis once. All right, let's go to step 5. So step 5, there's a lot of supplements, we all know, hundreds of them. So we kind of boiled it down with our doctors, talking to Life Extension and others. Which ones are the fundamental ones that everybody really should be taking? So here's the 15. And in parentheses, a little bit about why. And you can see there's a gold star by the first 6. And because of the diet of most children, then they really should be taking these in their teens. So again, the multivitamin, just the insurance policy, fish oil for heart and brain health, vitamin D, especially if you're in an area where you can't get at least 15 minutes of sun every day. Curcumin, used in Southwest Asia for 6,000 years. Vitamin K, so if kids aren't eating enough meat and eggs, and so many kids are eating so much junk food and so much sugar, then keeping their blood glucose down so they don't get into that cycle with the type 2 diabetes. All right, let's go to step 6. So now we're getting more controversial, more exciting. So take these 7. All of these, by the way, are recommended by Life Extension. They're recommended by the RADFest sessions we've all been to, by the RLD Coalition studies. So take the 4 on the left to reduce the risk of cancer, and then the 3 on the right directly increase longevity. So let's peel back the onion on this. So here's aspirin and 3 medications shown there on the first column. The second column shows the primary use. The third column shows the adjuvant therapy or additional benefit or off-label use. So I think we all know once the FDA approves a drug, that is, the benefit outweighs the side effects, then doctors can prescribe that drug for wherever else they want to. An example of a off-label one would be a Vinegar, developed as a heart drug, but then it had this other benefit that many of us have heard of about erectile dysfunction. So doctors can prescribe Vinegar because it's been proven not the side effects aren't too bad. And so then the third column shows which cancers are they helping to prevent, and the fourth column is showing the suggested dose. So example, I don't have high cholesterol, I'm taking a statin. I don't have a heart issue, I'm taking a low dose aspirin. I don't have high blood pressure, I'm taking a beta blocker. I don't have type 2 diabetes, but I'm taking metformin. So I'm taking all 4 of these, even though I don't have the condition that would call for them, because I want to prevent these cancers. Now, here's the interesting thing about metformin. So this is crazy data. So to summarize this, if you get type 2 diabetes and you don't take metformin, on average, you lose 10 years of lifespan and 15 years of health span. If you have type 2 diabetes and you take metformin, you'll outlive people who don't have type 2 diabetes. And so it's a startling result. And so you have to say to yourself, what is it about metformin that has this unbelievable benefit? Well, the FDA is so enthralled with this. The FDA has never started a study on longevity. And I think most of you know for clinical trials, they can cost tens of millions of dollars and they're funded by the drug companies and approved the process by the FDA. Double-blind, randomized, large sample over several years, etc. And so the FDA doesn't do these studies. It's the drug companies who do them using FDA guidelines. You can see from the last bullet, the FDA has got together tens of millions of dollars to do the study on metformin to see if it really does help with longevity. I got enough information. I'm not waiting for that study. Probably going to last 6 years. So the real question now is, now that you know this, would you take it? If you're an early adopter, you're going to take it. If you're not, if you're a wait and see person, probably not. Now let's get real exciting. So here are 3 other drugs with their primary use. The normal dose when they're being used for their primary use, the additional benefit, in this case longevity, just pure longevity, and the suggested dose. So rapamycin is a bacteria only found on Easter Island, and it was developed as a organ transplant rejection prevention drug. So if you get an organ transplant, your body wants to reject the organ. If you take rapamycin, then over a couple of weeks, it'll accept that organ from the pig or the other person. Well, the studies in Canada on rapamycin for decades, all dogs in Canada live 25% longer than the same breed in the US. And the reason? They're taking rapamycin. Now, step 7, remember the 4 reasons we die? So now let's take a look at what we can do about those 4 reasons. So number 1, we die because of the senescent cells and their bad effect, pumping out all those nasty compounds and affecting other cells. There are 3 supplements you can take that will get rid of those zombie cells. It's these 3. And it used to be one of the reasons, well, I'll show you that here in a second. Also for mTOR signaling, that's that protein that causes the fast growth, which we need from baby to adulthood, but it doesn't turn off, and it causes cancer to grow so fast. And so there are these 3 types of things you can do to slow down that mTOR signaling. Again, another benefit of metformin, the periodic fasting, and 2 other supplements. One of them, this longevity AI supplement, meaning developed using artificial technologies. And then, remember at age 80, we only have 2% of the NAD plus left. So if you're over 45, you really need an IV to get you back to where you should be. If you're under, and then continue with supplements. If you're under 45, then just take supplements. And then restore the immune system with these areas. And again, 2 more of these longevity-based supplements. So we now know the 4 reasons we die, big NIH study, and now we know what to do about all 4 of them. Now, to go along with this, as I mentioned, strength training is incredibly important because if we don't keep it up, by age 80, we've lost 50% of our muscle mass. It explains why when you go to a nursing home or an assisted living facility, there's mainly women because they outlive us men, but the men that are there are a bag of bones. They don't have any muscle left. So we got to keep up the strength training. All right, let's finally go to step 8, reduce stem cells in our entire body. And again, the problem, and I think we all know what a stem cell does. So when there's a damaged cell, the cell sends up a flare announcing that, and stem cells rush over there, and a stem cell can morph into one of 220 different cells to repair whatever that cell was that got damaged. The trouble is, by about age 80, we don't have any stem cells left. At age 65, there's like only 2% left. So this is another big reason that we need to do something about this. And these are the stem cell treatment applications today. An interesting example is the orthopedic doctors, their income's going way down because they're not replacing as many joints as they used to because in many cases, stem cells can do it. And you can also get full body rejuvenation. Typically, you've got to go overseas to get it. All right, step 9, stay abreast of all the new stuff. And again, if you really want to live forever, you got to be an early adopter, especially if you're my age. So here are some of the new things that have come out in the last several years that are having a great benefit. So I think most of us know about cancer immunotherapy. So cancer immunotherapy is a way to get our immune cells to attack the cancer and actually turn the cancer cells into attacking themselves. And it's not good it hasn't totally replaced radiation and chemo, but it is in certain cases better than chemo. For example, for skin cancer. And it's better for bladder cancer, but it's not better for every cancer. So now it's just another tool bag in the oncologist's tools. They got the radiation, they've got the chemo, and now they got the cancer immunotherapy. Bioelectronic medicine has really come on strong recently. So if you want to decrease nerves or increase them, stimulate them, you can now do it with bioelectronic medicine for these applications. And my wife gets the pain across the back of her shoulders, and this fixes it in 5 minutes. Also fixes it for her mother too. And some of the early adoption of the new stuff coming out, I mentioned the Crispr proteins. And the fact that it has just been proven against progeria. And there's now a new CRISPR technology called CRISPR on and CRISPR off. Instead of having to cut through the DNA, now you can just get that gene expression to go off, and it'll stay off unless you turn it on. So pretty cool. And there's a lot of applications actually of CRISPR technology. And their stock, by the way, CRISPR Therapeutics, has just gone totally crazy. I didn't mention this earlier, but a third of my IRA and 401k and profit sharing plans, a third of it's in biotech. The last decade was really a technology decade, and the FANG stocks, and now I really do think this decade is the biotechs. Here's another very interesting trial. Now, so let me mention something about fruit flies. So when a researcher proves something in a petri dish and they want to try it to see if it will work on humans, Then they tried in fruit flies, worms, mice, cats, dogs in that order. And the reason is all of those have a very similar genome to a human. I know it sounds crazy. And they all live much less time. So if you try something on a fruit fly and it looks good, and they only live days, then you go and try it on worms. And then if that works, you go try it on mice. And you just kind of keep going up the chain. So here's one, a combination of lithium, rapamycin, remember rapamycin, and metformin, has shown a huge increase in the longevity or lifespan of fruit flies. I don't actually have to worry about this one. I'm taking all three of those already. But if you, now that you know this, would you take them? If you're an early adopter, you probably would. So let's just go back and quick review. We're a couple slides from the end now. So here's the 9 steps that we covered. So it's really the details to support that initial planning guide, month by month by month steps. And again, it's kind of obvious, I hope, that the most important step is the 9th step, and that is stay abreast of what's happening. There's a new study that comes out every day about longevity. It's just a flood of research going on, worldwide too. Now here are the typical FAQ we hear, questions, and the typical answer. And again, right now, to do everything I'm doing, it isn't cheap. It's expensive. I am probably spending somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 a year just on these supplements and these therapeutics. But again, like any early adopter of anything, it's going to be expensive for the early adopters. But then once it becomes more widespread use, then the costs go down. And what we're really after is to get the government to recognize this so they can then just roll out the free vaccines and the free gene therapy to everybody. And so again, here's my 2x4 slide again. Here's what's possible. And so if you adopt everything we recommend, it's not going to mean another year or two. It could mean potentially 20 more years of lifespan and 37 more years of health span. The last slide, I've got a few things I'm happy to offer to any of you who would like it. And I will, I'll send this form. It's a Google form. So I'll send it to Neil. Maybe Neil, you can pass it to the people electronically. So you just check off what you want, hit submit, and then it comes to Amy, who will send you the information. So if there's anything here you would like, happy to get it to you.
Yes, thank you, John. In fact, if you would give us your presentation today, we'll couple that with our recording of the presentation. So those that come after this events this evening will be able to share it with them. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Happy to.
Great presentation, John. Thank you for talking tonight. I'm so glad you were able to join us.
Thank you so much. Do you have time for Q&A? Happy to do it.
We sure do. Yes, we have time for questions and answers, and I'm going to encourage anyone that's watching the live stream to put their questions forth. And I've got some from the audience already.
Okay.
First, let me start with this. Sleep is obviously a very important part of our health regime, and one of our members was asking what your thoughts are, any advice on a weighted blanket or melatonin?
I have both. I take extended release melatonin, which actually just came out from Life Extension here in the last 6 months. And I use a weighted blanket as well.
Okay, great. And a weighted blanket, you like those as well?
I do.
Okay.
I also have a face mask, and it's a weighted face mask.
Okay. And I just want to say that we don't make any recommendations for any particular brand. I'm glad that you have melatonin. I also have some, and it's been effective for me.
Yeah.
Someone was asking, what oven temperatures do you consider to be too high? What temperature would you say is too high for the oven?
It's typically around 350 and above. And there's The trouble with it is, at the grocery stores, rotisserie chickens are so popular.
Yes.
Believe it or not, but last year the country sold 950 million of them. And they're usually smaller birds, but they're cooked at incredibly high heat. That's the trouble with them.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're so good, I love them. I take the skin off, but still they've been cooked at very high heat. And they've also been, most of them sugars injected into them as well, which is not good.
Yeah, it's horrible to think of. John, what do you think about using a vinegar and water spray to clean plants and foods that are being processed with Roundup? Do you think vinegar water spray might be able to clean the Roundup off of them?
Well, I don't have it in this slide deck. I have a much bigger slide deck. And one of the slides shows that the Department of Agriculture has what's called an environmental working group. And every year they publish their dirty dozen, and that is the fruits and vegetables that you cannot wash off the pesticides. So yes, that vinegar and water spray is great, but it doesn't get them all. And so it's useful to know what the dirty dozen is. You just Google Department of Agriculture dirty dozen or environmental working group, and you'll see this year's dirty dozen.
Well, thanks for that tip. I'll do that. Someone was asking, could you explain the benefits of having a brain MRI?
So a brain MRI can just show abnormalities in the brain, just like they can be shown anywhere else in your body. And so there could be an incipient tumor, for example.
Right.
That's what you're looking for.
Yes, thank you. So someone was asking what metformin dosage would be recommended daily. What would you suggest?
There's no recommended daily. I take 1,000 milligrams twice a day. I think Bill Falloon takes 500 milligrams twice a day. Don't quote me on that, but as I remember, Bill and I were talking about it, and I think that's what he does.
Okay. So somewhere 500 to 1,000 milligrams twice a day is what would be recommended.
Yeah, but I'm not a doctor.
Right. No, I agree. Do you have a good source for getting rapamycin?
Oh yeah, you can just if you get a doctor to give you a prescription. I get it from Walgreens.
Okay.
Now the trouble is, I'll give you one quick little story. So I've had the same doctor, primary physician, for 20 years. And 4 years ago, I said, Tim, I want a prescription for metformin. He said, what for? You don't have that type 2 diabetes. I said, yes, for longevity. He said, that's crazy. And so I showed him the studies on it that were actually in Life Extension magazine with a ton of references behind it. And he said, I'm still not comfortable giving you this because, the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. It does have some side effects. So why would you want those side effects? I said, Tim, you're killing me. Give me the damn prescription. He refused, and so he's no longer my primary physician. I have a longevity doctor now.
Good for you. Wow. All right.
Same thing with rapamycin.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, John. And if you could get a copy of this this PowerPoint over to Doug, we'll make sure that we include it in with this presentation. We're going to be, this service has been recorded, so it'll be available by sometime probably tomorrow. So I'd like to invite everyone who's watching now to tell everyone else that they can watch this, and also to join us on Thursday, May 27th, for a presentation by Sharp Again Naturally, the Brain 2021, what we now know and what you need to know. And also be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can let you know about our next events. John, thank you so much. It's been a great presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you. Great to be with you all.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for attending our live stream this month. Be sure to get our monthly email newsletter for updates on our next service and other updates and discoveries in age reversal technologies and health practices. Please share the recording of this event and our other events with all of the people that you care about, your family, your friends, those that you love. And join us next month for another brilliant presentation here at the Church of Perpetual Life.